3 signs that you might need to take your loved one in for evaluation to see if they have dementia. So I was a caregiver for my grandmother for 8 years, and these are some things that I uncovered, and I wish that someone had told me. So number 1 is disorientation. My grandmother became so disoriented to where routes that she had been driving on her way to work for years, she no longer was able to memorize those routes. She no longer remembered the streets. She no longer remembered to turn left or turn right. She would just kind of get really flustered and not remember something that was so habitual that most of the time you can kind of do it on autopilot. So it was so bad to where she ended up getting into a car accident, because in this particular area that she was used to driving, there was a stop sign, and she just completely ran the stop sign as if it was a 45-mile-an-hour street, and ended up getting into a bad car accident. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but it was 100% her fault technically. But at the time, we didn't think of it as a cognitive issue. We just thought she just really messed up, right? And she didn't really know how to explain what she was going through. She didn't really know how to explain that she missed the stop sign. She just kind of seemed really in shock herself and didn't understand, almost like a time, like she had a time lapse and just couldn't remember the moment. And so that was one of the first signs when I look back that we should have taken her in super early on to maybe get her some of the care and the needs that she would have needed to actually slow the progression of the dementia down, but we didn't know. So we just kind of thought like, hey, well, she is getting older, mistakes happen. Thankfully, no one was hurt. And actually after that, she decided to really not drive because she knew something was wrong. But again, she didn't really know how to articulate it and say, hey, I think I'm just having some issues with being able to remember things that I always remember. She didn't really know how to communicate that. And then again, with us not being educated on dementia, we didn't think of that as an option. So she began to get very disoriented with things that were very habitual. Okay, so almost like brushing your teeth, driving down that street was so habitual that it was very, very odd that she had made that big of a mistake. Okay, and that was when we didn't have cell phones, so it wasn't like she was texting and driving. So just if there's something that is just completely out of touch, like just something that is very odd for your loved one to forget or be completely unaware of or just completely miss, might be a sign. Okay, so number 2, of course, memory loss. And I think that this one gets kind of confusing, and I think it's even still kind of confusing to explain. But when I look back now that my grandmother has passed, and just kind of reflecting on all of the experience that I have caring for her, when I think back to the beginning stages of her dementia, when it went undiagnosed, she did forget a lot of things that were kind of just like that next level abnormal. So I think all of us have some level of, oh, we forgot our keys, or oh, we usually place our shoes over here, but we placed them over here, and then now we're ready to go, and then we don't remember that we placed our shoes in a different area than we are used to having them, right? Little things like that most of us kind of can maybe just like, I don't know what to call it, just like a small forgetfulness, right? That's not what I'm talking about. It's things that is really odd for her to forget, okay? And then again, we would kind of just laugh it off, or just kind of like brush it off, like, okay, well, that was interesting. Usually you would never forget that, or that's your favorite X, Y, and Z. I can't believe you don't remember that, or that's your favorite food. You don't remember what the name of it is. Like just things like that are just kind of that next level odd, right? And you'll kind of know, it kind of speaks to your spirit. Like now when I look back, it was things that we didn't think were a big deal. But when I think back and remember how I felt, I would be like, that is really weird that she forgot that. Or she's the best at that, so how does she not know how to do that now, right? So it's things like that when it's outside of the norm of just kind of the typical way that most people kind of forget where they put their pen, forget where they put their keys, bunch of miscellaneous stuff in a drawer, and it's just a big drawer full of stuff, so you don't know exactly where it is. Like, things like that, you know, it's nothing to really be too concerned about. But when I look back, if it's something just, if your intuition says something's off about that particular thing that your loved one forgot, then you might want to consider taking them in just to be evaluated. And again, the earlier you take them in, there's no harm, even if they are just doing the casual forget your keys here and there. You might even still want to take them in if they are 65 and over, just in case. There's no harm in getting an early diagnosis, or getting a diagnosis that says, hey, you don't have anything to worry about, your loved one doesn't have dementia. But it's worse to kind of keep brushing the small forgetfulness here and there off, and then later on figuring out that they're already in the mid stages of dementia, which is what ended up happening with me and my family. We found out that my grandmother had dementia when it was already so far along that we couldn't really slow down the progression of it. There's things that you can definitely do, which I'll talk about in another video, to kind of slow down the progression. But once it's already on a roll, that, you know, there's speculation out there. Again, I have no idea if it's true or not. It's all anecdotal, and hasn't been officially, you know, deemed as a possibility to heal dementia, even though I would like to believe that those things are true. I don't know if they are, so complete disclaimer on that. But the earlier you can detect it, there's things that you can do to prolong it from just coming on so viciously like it did with my grandmother, okay? And then having this very long, drawn out, slow cognitive decline that is really, really harsh to watch. And number one, sad to know that your loved one is going through it, because she's the one who has to actually deal with it, he or she, right? So I will talk about that in another video. So number three, that your loved one might have potential signs of early onset dementia is radical frustration. So my grandmother would get really, really, really fussy and really, really, really agitated. And this is what was interesting, is specifically with my grandmother. My grandmother's always been a very feisty woman. Okay, so her personality already was this kind of always a little frustrated, quick to snap at you, just feisty. And that was who she was. And we all knew her and loved her to be that way. So when my grandmother was just extra mean, kind of, extra snippy, extra snappy, where it's kind of like, okay, you know, you're post-menopausal, so you're not going through that menopausal process anymore. You know, my grandfather had passed away by that point. He had passed away 20 years prior. So it wasn't like your spouse is getting on your nerves, you know what I mean? There wasn't really a way to pinpoint it. It was just kind of like, it went from normal, spunky, feisty grandma to like really walking on eggshells, because everything just became a big deal. She just would get flustered very quickly. If you asked her certain questions, she would get flustered. She would get mad that you asked, and it'd be something simple like, hey grandma, where's your jacket? I'm going to get your jacket for you so we can go. Let me grab your jacket for you. And then she would just go off. So it would just be things like that where it's abnormal for someone to be getting that frustrated, like that angry off of a simple question, right? So again, just tap into your intuition on this. That's the only way I can really explain it, is if it seems extra odd, like a little bit out of the ordinary, it might be something that you want to start taking notes on and track. And if you start to see that it's a pattern, you know, over the course of weeks and a few months, you might want to take your loved one in just to get it evaluated. And again, it's nothing to really get super, super scared over. It's just more so the earlier you can catch this, the more you can become informed, and the more you can prolong the vicious side effects of it from coming on, okay? So also, if you are a current caregiver for your loved one with dementia and you just feel lost, I really want to encourage you to get with the Alzheimer's organization. Give them a call. They have a 1-800 number. Just look them up, Google Alzheimer's organization, and get with a caregiving group. And they actually have workshops via Zoom that you can take to get better educated on how to deal with somebody with dementia. I really want to encourage you to do that because having community is the best way to get through